just before we came to air, we were taking a look. This is a board from Coinbase, and Bitcoin up at 104, Ethereum. You know what's amazing about this too? Unlike the traditional stock market, which closes at 4:00 on Friday and won't open again until 9:30 on Monday morning. Guess what? You can trade this stuff like all day long, right? You can all night long. It's actually really addictive. I don't encourage people to be looking at this late at night on a Saturday night, but nonetheless, this is what you and I were doing right before we came to air. And so you look at some of these big players, XRP. I want to talk to you a little bit about XRP, but before we do, just, there's a lot of different ones out there, right? And you can build kind of a basket. That's what I've done sort of independently on my own. And so I have a few like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. I have Tau. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But these are, it's just a way to kind of get exposure, I guess, to a broader array of things.
Yeah, I guess I'll share my own kind of personal way of kind of breaking down the crypto universe from my own investment standpoint. So Bitcoin is about the crypto universe, and it's the original token, the original crypto investment. To me, it's in a class by itself. Bitcoin is a form of money. It's digital capital. Its only use case is to be money. Mm-hmm. It's supply constrained, and I think it has. I'm very optimistic about where it's headed, its ability to kind of in on gold's market cap, which is still 10 times larger than Bitcoin's market cap. I personally have a pretty meaningful allocation to Bitcoin, mm-hmm. Both through ETFs and directly. Mm-hmm. Now, these other tokens that you've mentioned, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, we see those are the next biggest ones. Mm-hmm. And those represent technologies. They are crypto technologies, kind of like what Jamie Dimon was referring to. So these are technological tools that enable improvements in the financial system and have all kinds of other potential applications. And so their value kind of derives from their utility as technological tools. Mm-hmm. And then you have that third basket, which we referred to earlier, which were kind of meme coins, which don't necessarily do anything. They're more like collectibles, and they're speculative assets.
It's like stickers. It reminds me of when I was a kid, I had a sticker collection. And they're like stickers, but the stickers had no value. I guess they had value to us kids, but the reality is when you look at something like Bitcoin, Ethereum, you're talking about real technology that's behind this stuff. So it's a different prospect.
But what Jamie Dimon wants you to think is that the meme coins and the pet rocks and the beanie babies, and the stickers are the same thing as Bitcoin. Yeah. And the same thing as some of these other, technology-based initiatives, and they're not. And I think investors should be mindful that, just as when you look at the stock market and you see Microsoft, you're not comparing it to GameStop, and you're not comparing it to some penny stock seems to be a fraud, right? They're all stocks, but they're very different animals.
It's a good point. When I'm looking at this chart, the market caps overall on some of these cryptos are pretty extraordinary. Bitcoin leading the way, number 2 being Ethereum, XRP is the third. Give me a sense of just how much money is in there.
Yep. So I checked. 2.1 trillion is Bitcoin's market cap. So that's the total number of Bitcoins out there times the current price. Mm-hmm. And then Ethereum is the number 2 at 400 billion of total value, mm-hmm. which is considerable. That would put it up there as one of the larger stocks on S&P 500. Solana, XRP about 180 billion, and Solana about 125 billion. And then it starts to fall off. So those are the big, I think the next one's like 50 billion. So, those are the big 4. And then you have many others down the list.
I want to get to a couple of the questions because our friend Peace of My Mind is here tonight. Thank you, Peace of My Mind, for tuning in and catching the live. Way to go. And he's got some really good questions. And one of them is, can you buy things with Bitcoin? Or do you need to exchange Bitcoin dollars to be able to purchase things? And, you and I were talking about this recently because I know that you've also had a foray into stablecoins, et cetera. And there, we're not at the point right now where you're like transacting in Bitcoin. You're still, if you're in a Coinbase wallet, at least this is how I do it, right? I have my Bitcoin in, say, IBIT or BTC, which are ETFs, and that's what you trade on the exchange. And then you can have a Coinbase account, or I also have some Tau in a Kraken account. We can talk about that, but like those, you would typically want to, you could trade them for other things there and maybe, buy and sell within the app. But with Bitcoin, what I would do, and I don't sell it, but if I were to sell it, I'd sell it and then transfer it back into my bank account for actual dollars. So are we going to get to the point, probably, not with Bitcoin, but he's asking also, is there like a Bitcoin credit card that people could use to make purchases? I think, at this stage, and Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, it's just sort of like, okay, this is a place to store money, but it's not actually money.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. It's like a store of value.
Bitcoin, for people who, are willing to receive Bitcoin, Bitcoin is used as money, but I would say that's not going to be the future of Bitcoin. The Bitcoin network actually doesn't lend itself to a high volume of small transactions because of all the energy and computational resources that go into verifying the transactions. So it's not going to replace credit card transactions. However, they have what's called technologies which utilize Bitcoin and sort of build on the network that will enable smaller, more frequent transactions. Mm-hmm. But I would say the idea with Bitcoin more, just as you wouldn't use gold to buy a cup of coffee or your stake in gold, Bitcoin is going to be more for storage of capital, but can definitely be modified.
And wouldn't you see, though, the credit card companies? It's actually an interesting way to think about. I look at credit card companies as an interesting way to play inflation, and also perhaps a way to play cryptos, because a lot of them, I think, are recognizing that this is the future, right? Because, boy, did I get mad. A couple years ago, I was traveling overseas, or maybe a year and a half ago, I was in Ireland again. And I'm like, what? I got hit with an international transaction fee on my credit card. And it turned out I just needed a different credit card, a better credit card that wasn't going to do that, because you shouldn't be charging that nowadays because of the ease of which, but it's just going to get easier and easier and easier and easier, I think. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the credit card companies should be adopting this technology, which, by the way, gets back to what we just saw with Jamie Dimon, is completely scary for the JP Morgans of the world.
Yep. The credit card situation is fascinating. So there's, the credit card industry is sort of controlled by Visa and MasterCard. It's kind of a duopoly. There's also American Express, which is a separate network. When people talk about the disruption to the credit card industry, I think a lot of times they're thinking, okay, Visa and MasterCard are going to be displaced. But you have to understand that those transaction fees mainly go to the banks. Mm-hmm. That Visa and MasterCard are actually very efficient networks that charge something like 15 to 20 basis points on transactions, whereas the bank's taking the 2% from the merchant. Mm-hmm. So the bank most to lose here, and companies like Visa and MasterCard are actually investing very heavily on blockchain technology and adapting their businesses, which are incredible franchises and incredibly valuable franchises, $1 trillion franchises. They're adapting them to be used with Bitcoin, or to use the different crypto technologies to move money around more.
Yeah. So it's a way to think about it, right? Because I don't think Visa and MasterCard are going anywhere. They get it. Like Larry Fink, They get it. TCC Redding, MicroStrategy, could it be a Bitcoin bank one day? That's kind of an interesting question. It's the largest holder by far of Bitcoin so far, and it continues to buy Bitcoin. And as Michael has explained, Michael Saylor's never selling the Bitcoin, so they're just amassing it. And it's almost like a treasury, if you would, right, of Bitcoin. How do you think about MicroStrategy, MSTR, and what it could potentially be doing?
Yeah. I mean, he describes it himself as a Bitcoin treasury company. To some extent, it almost already is a bank. To some extent, it could become almost like the central bank of the Bitcoin world, just in the sense of, it's a decentralized network. But I mean, given the amount of Bitcoin that that company will own, they'll be a very big player. And I think that's a lot of the reason why it trades at that big premium to underlying net asset value, because there's all kinds of innovation that can come from building off that capital base of Bitcoin. And, right now he's selling convertible bonds and selling options, so selling various financial. But the opportunity is to kind of innovate further, utilizing that capital base of Bitcoin, maybe lending activities, mortgages, all kinds of opportunities. So
Amazing. I mean, and then I wonder if like stable coins come into play in that arena as well, right? Just given the volatility of Bitcoin. Thoughts?
Well, I think, when we talk about stable coins, I think now we're more in the realm of Ethereum, which I think has about half the market share of the stablecoin market. Where basically the stablecoin business is based on buying U.S. treasuries, and then sort of tokenizing them and creating a digital asset, version of U.S. treasuries. And that's
so it's kind of good if you think about it. Some people worry like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to U.S. treasuries if you get all this other, but it's like a win-win.
Yeah. Well, you see Tether right there under XRP. So Tether is the leading stablecoin, coin, and with a very substantial total asset value. And basically, it's like a bank account. It's like a money market fund, and you receive interest as you would if you went to a bank. So what's happening here? You're not going to J.P. Morgan. You're not going to Jamie Dimon to buy his money market fund or to put your money in a savings account. You're going to an exchange. You're buying Tether. You're getting something like a 4 or 4.5% return on it. And this whole thing is operated by, on an Ethereum blockchain, with these private kind of companies.
The world is
eliminating
changing.
The banking system. Yeah.
The world is changing so fast.
Trish, to your point, though, one of the reasons Trump is so keen on advancing this, and this is a point David Sachs has made repeatedly.
By the way, David Sachs, just so everyone knows, crypto czar. He's by the way just a brilliant tech investor, and is coming in. It was one of the PayPal guys, right, originally, and is coming in to run this crypto effort at the White House.
Yeah. So the theory is that this will, tokens like Tether, which can be purchased by basically anyone in the world, and give you a sort of a pass through to U.S. treasuries. So the more money that goes into Tether, the more U.S. treasuries have to be purchased. And so the idea is that we're now leveraging the crypto world and sort of the global market opportunity of crypto to bring capital to finance the U.S. government indirectly. And bring down interest rates. And so that's how we're
going to fix the debt situation.